We got a secret to drop here. This secret was never known until now, right now. I mean, by now, I mean, it was now when the book was written, which was in 1758. But maybe you still haven't heard this, because this is still like relatively hot off the press to the human race. The secret that everybody knows in heaven, but that we don't know here, is that this thing here, heaven is in the human form. You are wearing the form of heaven. Meaning, all the angels that are together in heaven work together, not just kind of like a human body, but in the exact same way a human body works together. The human form is just a little version of heaven. And what it is to be human may not be what you think as well. It is not actually about, it's not that it starts with the shape. Oh, you can just build a human-shaped robot and then it will become a human being. The core of what we are is our ability to think what is true and will what is good. That is the thing from which everything else about us emerges. And because of this, angels don't care at all what's going on with your body. I mean, they don't care what your body is doing. They only care about the motivation and the thoughts that go with it. Knowing that heaven is human changes the way you look at everything. Let's explore that right now. So let's get to our secret, the secret of the human heaven, which we actually spoiled already in the Fractal show, which was the last show that we did. We talked about how the human form appears at scale and that an individual angel is a human, community is a human, all the way up to the entirety of heaven can be seen as one grand human. You may not realize how important of a concept that is, though. Swedenborg is positively freaking out about this. I don't know. I wasn't there when he wrote it, but look at the way he writes about this as it's introduced. This is important to know if we're going to grasp deeper wisdom about reality. This is a foundational concept upon which a lot of your handy-dandy spiritual tools can rest. This is Heaven and Hell 59. He says, the whole heaven is a section title, grasped as a single entity, reflects a single individual. Wow, man. That's like Star Trek or something. It is a secret not yet known in this world. I told you that heaven, taken in a single, all-inclusive grasp, reflects a single individual. So I'm saying, look, we show this map of heaven, right? Why isn't this map just a big old gingerbread cutout looking person? Isn't that what heaven is? That's not exactly what we're talking about. This is a fine representation of heaven. It's actually a bunch of different communities. It's not quite as neat as this, but there are these basic levels. There are communities of angels that live all around the different parts of heaven, and they have different kinds of hearts and minds. That's why there are different colors in this. Oops, I flipped these. And now they can't breathe in the atmospheres that they're in. Okay. Here we are. All these angels are here. But every angel is defined by the engine that drives their life is what they do that makes the world better, makes life better. That their use that they perform, how they serve the whole, and the goal of God, which is to make everybody as fully and profoundly happy as they can possibly be. That's what really makes each angel who they are. So the kinds of functions they have can be put into categories. Like, let's say you have something to do with some kind of purification. Like maybe you're a teacher where you're saying, oh, no, little students, those ideas are not quite correct, but these ones are. And maybe you're some kind of law enforcement type thing. We're saying, nope, those behaviors, we can't do those behaviors, but you can do these ones. There are functions, protection, purification, whatever it is. Those functions exist in the human body as well. Your kidneys are purifying, your skin is protecting, your immune system is protecting. So all the things that angels do, all their super complex things, they fit into the same categories that you would find if you looked at a map of the organs and things in your body. So you don't when you walk in the door. Actually, Swedenborg says in another place, nobody except God can really see heaven as a single person, because you have to have such a deep understanding of how everything works. But yet, you could see in part, we are like, not just like, but we are one body together. This general concept people know in heaven. Going back to our quote, it says, in heaven, though, nothing is better known. It's a secret to us on earth. You might not have thought of it before, but in heaven, this is just, Jerry knows it, Frank knows it, Susan knows it. Everybody knows that. And further than that, knowing particulars and details about it, is the hallmark of an angelic intelligence there. In fact, many other things follow from it and do not come clearly and distinctly to mind without this as their general principle. Here we have in school, we try to set out general principles. Like, we've got to learn the letters and stuff so that you can learn words, and then words can teach you meanings. And you got to know some basics in history and math and those kind of things so that you can understand the world that we're in. One of the 101 subjects in heaven is to understand how the whole is, to understand how intimately interconnected we are, to understand the relationship between us. That is the knowledge of the human form of heaven. And the more you know of that, the more people say, wow, that's a smart person right there. That person's got their head on their shoulders, to use a human body metaphor. And many of the other concepts that make heaven rest on that. So angels are walking around to greater or lesser extents, depending on how wise they are, thinking about heaven in the term of being a human being. What a handy reference that this thing that is at the root of how everything works is not some foreign, strange thing that you get introduced to at one point in life. You live inside it. You know this better than you know anything, because every morning you know what it's like to have a body and stretch it and brush your teeth. And it's something that everyone's a part of. Swedenborg says in Heaven and Hell 59, since angels do know that all the heavens, like their communities, reflect a single individual. Oh yeah, by the way, angels can see individual communities as single individuals. So they're well familiar with a group of people looking like a single person. They refer to heaven, then overall, as the universal and divine human. Divine because the Lord's divine nature constitutes heaven. So heaven is the universal human because we are all a part of it. Every single one of us is playing some part, just like every little cell is a part of the body and is getting everything it needs from the body and is giving everything it can to the body. That universal person includes everyone who is in heaven. And the difference between being in heaven and not in heaven, it just means the most important thing to you is the goal that God has, which is that everyone should be most fully and profoundly happy. That's what puts you in heaven. And so it's universal. Everyone that's in that state is in the same body. Divine human because it's the Lord's divine nature that constitutes heaven. So the Lord, as I just said, the Lord is the love for the entire human race. The thing that, if you zoom in on your hand, you have skin cells, but right next to those, there's a bunch of other stuff. There's a bunch of bacteria and, those little tiny tardigrades that they call. They look like little bears. I'm serious. Go look it up. There's other things that are on you, but they're not part of you because they don't have the same DNA as you. They're not participating in the body. The participation in the body is the Lord's divine nature. When we let that in, then that's why it's the divine. It's not just any human, because you can have a human that acts like a jerk, but the divine human is this universal human with a divine impulse behind it, which is, again, love for everyone and wisdom about how to lead everyone to their highest happiness. That's the equivalent of the goal of health that our body has. Here, though, health is happiness for every single part of heaven. And that's the cool secret. So what does it mean to be human? We're talking so much about how important human is. The secret is that heaven is human. What is that? What is that thing that you're talking about? You might think that the human is tied to the shape, or that it derives from the shape. So because you gotta have hands, and you gotta have arms, and you gotta have a head, put all together, and then that's human. Or you might think that you're human because you can talk. So other stuff can't talk, but humans can talk. Like if there was a disembodied voice that was like, I'm here, I'm a human, but you think that, okay, well, that's a human. It's actually deeper than both of those things. Speech, the body, they're elements of it, but they're not where it comes from. What makes you you? Well, here's a new definition of humanity, which is, I find, a really cool way to think, not just about yourself, but think about other people. What makes them who they are? It's from Heaven and Hell number 60. People who do not have an appropriate concept of spiritual and heavenly realities cannot grasp the fact that heavenly and spiritual realities are arranged and connected in this form and image. Boom! To people who don't have an appropriate concept of spiritual and heavenly realities. They think that the earthly and material elements that make up their outermost form really make them what they are, and that without them, they would not be human. Don't fall into the trap of thinking that your body is the reason that you're conscious and that that you can appreciate a sunset. He goes on. Let them know, though, that they are not human beings because of these elements, but because they are able to understand what is true and will what is good. These are the spiritual and heavenly realities that make them human. That's what makes us human. Not just that you have a body, not just that you have even a mind, really. The thing that truly makes us human is our ability to understand what is good, understand what is true, and will what is good. So humanity, in a way, is something that we work toward. Because that's inhuman. This is inhumane treatment. What do we mean by that? We don't mean it doesn't have all the features of a human being. We mean that it's not good. It's not good. You can be humane when you treat things well. We sense that, no, really, I'm a human being. That's a human being. You got to treat them well. Because goodness and truth is what it's really all about. That is what makes us human. We can walk around without goodness and truth. And sure, we've got some components of human, but we're not fully human. And this is why heaven is the most human thing. And ultimately, the Lord is the most human thing. Because the Lord most fully understands the truth, is the truth, and loves what is good and is what is good. If God is the love of everyone and is the knowledge of everything and the knowledge of how to bring about the goal of love, which is happiness, the more that we're like that, the more that we emulate that or glom onto that, the more we're like human. That's pretty cool. Swedenborg goes on in Heaven and Hell 60. People do not realize that the humanity of every individual depends on the quality of his or her understanding and intentions. They can also realize that the earthly body is formed to serve them in this world and to perform useful actions in a suitable manner in this outmost sphere of nature. This is also why the body does not do anything on its own, but acts in complete obedience to the bidding of our understanding and intentions. The human body, the human form, all this stuff, all the structure that comes with it is a mechanism for allowing us to follow our intentions and our thoughts, our ideas, our convictions. If I see there's cookies over there, my body will, I want those cookies. Okay, the legs will kick in, my arms will kick in if I really need to get rolling over to those things. The tongue, the mouth says, oh, you're thinking that and you want to say it? We will do all the bending and moving and swirling needed to make sound come out. It is an expression of the intention and the understanding. If you get it backwards, if you say, oh no, it's the body, it starts with the body, that's like kind of like doing this. Hey, I have something amazing to show you. You're not going to believe this. This is so incredible. I have a glove that can move itself. You don't believe me? Watch this. See that? Each one of its fingers, it's just moving. It can contract, it can expand, it can do this. Yeah, of course, the glove is not moving itself. The glove doesn't do anything. Glove is completely inanimate, but it is something that can perfectly react to the hand that's inside. So it is with the body. The body on its own would be just matter. It would be inanimate, but it is perfectly adapted. It's the perfect fit to have our will and our understanding, which are that humanity within the body, direct it wherever we want to go. That's why in the afterlife, when the physical body is gone, you still have a body, you have a spiritual body, because you still have an understanding and the will, and those things then, instead of organizing physical materials to carry out what they want to do, they organize spiritual materials that carry out what they want to do. So this is how the spiritual body continues to look human in the spiritual world. So the inner reality of our will and understanding there acts through a spiritual tool. Here it's acting through a physical tool. There's a little bit of a gap between the physical tool that we're using called the body and then the spirit behind it, the intentions and the will, because your mind can change. Your will and intentions are like constant stem cells. Your will and your understanding are like constant stem cells. You can change those. Those can actually, we're asked to change those. The idea is that through truth, you're constantly changing what you care about, what you find most important, what you give your attention to, what you act on, and that changes the nature of who you are. Because remember, who we are is our will and intention. So that can change, and actually, it can grow younger. As we become more and more spiritual, or whatever you want to call it, as we become more and more like heaven, the spirit gets more and more beautiful. It gets younger and more vibrant, but that doesn't happen with the body. The body's got its trajectory. It's like a piece of clothing. Like it's just gonna get older. It's gonna wear out, and eventually we'll outgrow it. But just know your spirit, which is the actual who you are, can be getting more and more the picture of health. In Heaven and Hell 60, it says, it is because of these facts that we are called inner and spiritual humans, because the real you is inside you that we're called inner and spiritual humans. Heaven is this kind of person in the greatest and most perfect form. So heaven is the most spiritual human that exists. And that's because heaven is a complete expression, because every little person that's in it buys into it. It's the most complete expression of serving God by loving the neighbor. Because what God wants, the divine side of the divine human wants, is let's make everybody as profoundly happy as can possibly be. And then the intellectual side that goes with that is, here's what we got to do to make that happen. And that's what everyone in heaven is hyped about. So that's why everyone in heaven is in these amazing human forms, and why heaven as a whole is in the human form, because it's got that will and that intent to do what is good and what is true, baby. So heaven is this extremely human thing, and it's full of angels, which are humans who have become more human, meaning they are more about divine love and divine truth, meaning their bodies have died, so they're in the spiritual world. And the reason that heaven is human is because all the angels in it are living this really human lifestyle. So how does an angel human look at other angel humans, or at one of us? How do you, from that perspective, of heaven, how do you look at a person? Here's a fascinating, profound idea in Heaven and Hell 61. Angels never pay attention to what someone's body is doing, but rather to the intent from which the body is acting. They call this the essential person, together with the intellect, to the extent that it is acting in unison with the intent. Meaning, what your thought life is less important to them unless it is in line with how you're acting. Isn't that, we know that it's kind of shallow to judge people on their bodies. I see some of that in here. Angels, I'm not even really thinking about, like, I would get, like, how you're dressed or what you're doing. Why? Why are you doing what you're doing? Because any act, even the bodily act, can have different intents in it. I say, here's a plate of cookies. This is the second time I've talked about cookies in this show. Here's a plate of cookies, everyone. That's an action. Angel doesn't care about that. Cares about why are you doing that? Because I could be saying, I know everybody loves cookies. That feels great to get a cookie. All right, well here, they're good. Then there's good intention there. It could be that I'm, running for class president and I'm like, well, I want these people to vote for me instead of for them. So have a cookie, everyone. It's like less good. It could be that the cookies are poisoned. I'm like trying to collect the treasure for myself. The action, it's not about the action, it's about the intent behind the action. Try that. You can think about the intent being, with any human being, the primary thing.
The intent of someone's actions is not only the most important part of the actions. Our general intentions, or our will, is the primary ingredient of who we are as people. Under this section, there's a footnote in which Swedenborg leads us to a passage in Secrets of Heaven that says, "It is willing that makes a person human, and not so much knowing and understanding, since knowing and understanding derive from willing. Anything that fails to flow out of our will is something we do not want to know or understand. In fact, when we speak and act at variance with our will, it is still a form of will, one far removed from our words and deeds, that controls us. It's the will for goodness, the desires, the goals, the intentions that make us human, rather than what we know or don't know. And how that relates to information is that we'll only seek out and retain information if we want it. In this world, we might sometimes speak and act in a way that's not aligned with our deeper will, but there would always be some reason that we would want to speak and act that way. To hide something, to please someone, to protect someone, to try to be a better person in that moment than we feel like being. The reassuring thing is, if we simply cultivate a general desire for goodness and cultivate intentions to do good as best we can, that's shaping us into someone heavenly, which will connect us with the best quality information and activity in the end. And it's our intentions that God and angels are concerned with.
The good news is your body's not who you are. Your physical body doesn't really reflect who you are. There's times when it can, sort of, but a ton of stuff can be going on with it that doesn't have anything to do with your will and your intellect, or your intent and your thoughts. And that's an incredible thing to try to practice looking at people. And if I was an angel, I would notice more I'd be looking for and noticing more what their intent is than, how they look or even what they're doing, which is amazing. Even the actions, it's like, why are you doing those actions? Why are you doing those actions? Because it's really about the motivation. And that probably works great in heaven because everyone there has really good motivations. And so it's kind of like we can have it backwards, where the most important thing is how do you look, and then what actions do you have, and then who we are deep inside. There, it's the other way. It's like, who are you? What's your intent? And what thoughts line up with that intent? That's who you really are. Oh yeah, and this is how you carry it out. Great, and that's how your external form is. Okay, fine. I could get into that. That'd be a cool way to be. So can you keep a secret? You don't have to keep this one. You can tell anyone you want. The secret is heaven is in human form. Humanity increases as we move more into heaven, because humanity is not even really defined by the shape of the human being. It's not like you go into heaven and all the hedge bushes, someone has trimmed them to look like human beings, and there's stones in the path that have a human outline on them. It is primarily a state of intent and the thoughts that go with that intent. That's what makes us human. And as we move more into heaven, that intent is more and more ingrained into everything. The intent, by the way, being to make everyone as fully and profoundly happy as they can possibly be, and seek the wisdom to do that. That's what God's all about. So God shows up more and more in people, makes them more and more human, and then they all work together. And that's what heaven is. We can be doing that here. You can become more and more human as you let that divine intent and that divine wisdom into your life. I think that's what you would call becoming spiritual, or being reborn, or being regenerated. It is this increasing of the amount of humanity in us. We can be doing that. Then people who are human can get together in groups. So it can be your community, your business that you're in, your family, that can be like its own human. And then as those join together, you can get this grand form. And there can be a human community that spans dimensions. We can have a heaven full of human people being human. You can have heaven on earth where people are being human, working together. It's a map that's there to follow. You can just look at yourself and say, look at how everything has to balance with everything else. Everything has to work with everything else. Everything has to care for everything else. Everything has to give what it has to everything else. Everything receives from everything else. And there you have the map toward this state of heaven. So let's make it so it's not a secret anymore. Humanity. It's all about humanity.